Thank you, madam. Thank you very much. I hope I am audible and also
Absolutely.
visible. Thanks a lot. Let me first convey my slightly belated wish for the safe and slightly more joyful New Year 2022. We are passing through a very, very tough time, challenging times, not only from the point of view what the topic will definitely bring on the table to debate, but also in our social, in our everyday life. So let me wish all who have joined either physically or on the platform virtually. Secondly, I will convey my apology for not being able to present physically because of the protocol being maintained from our company not to attend any gatherings. So I really beg apology for that. With this, let me get into the today's program. Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. And after Mr. Selim, MD PDCL, I have hardly anything new points to bring on the table. My heartfelt thanks to the Engineers Welfare Forum of West Bengal Power Development Corporation Limited for giving me the opportunity to deliberate, discuss, and most burning issue of Indian power sector today, which is the life of coal-based thermal power plants in India, particularly in the backdrop of the recently concluded COP26. I'm truly proud to be here to get a chance to put my views. Let me get into the topic straight away and try to set the perspective on my own way. See, what has happened in the COP26 is there are a couple of things has happened. One is, yes, every country has accepted that they will reduce, let me emphasize the word reduce, the use of coal. And perhaps in the history of last 30 years of United Nations Climate Summit, this is the first time where all countries accepted and agreed to reduce coal-based thermal power plants. At the same time, they all have agreed to take actions so that the temperature rise 1.5 degrees centigrade or below with respect to the pre-industrial level. These are the two things which has happened. There was some controversy, as Mr. Selim said. Yes, there was a controversy regarding the pact where all the countries to be signed regarding a particular phrase. What is that phrase? Phrase was whether coal-based thermal power plants will be phasing out or coal-based thermal power plants will be phasing down. The word was phasing out, and it was debated, fiercely debated by the countries like India, China, and United States. And at the end of the day, these phase out words has to be watered down and phase down what phrase was actually included. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, my point is that in India, we have not decided a particular time by which coal-based thermal power plants will all be shut down. This is my takeaway from the COP26 common resolution. I am not telling that we are not going to lower it down, but I am telling there is no specific timeline which has been agreed on. I hope many of you will agree that for a country like us, they must have the fair share of global carbon budget and should be entitled to responsibly use fossil fuel within its scope. I repeat, global carbon budget should have a fair share for the developing countries like us, and we also must be responsibly use fossil fuel to the extent possible. We may recall in 2025 in COP Paris, the number of United Nations agreed to consider that taking actions to combat climate change, the agenda taking actions to combat climate change is one of the 17 sustainable development goals with a target delivery of 2030. It is one of the major agenda of 17 goals. We have our own issues, ladies and gentlemen. Poverty reduction, improvement in healthcare, nutrition, access to clean water, access to sanitation, creating better employment are also necessary along with access to clean energy. Prioritization for a country like us is more complicated for policymakers to decide. So I'm again telling, I'm not opposing the infusion of renewable energy, but my only point is the debate is how fast, how quick, how rapid this change should be brought into the system. Therefore, for the developing countries like us, where energy is still scarce, expensive, and other social problems are still persisting and pressing, CO2 emission limit is one of the many competing objectives compared to developed nations where energy policy is exclusively viewed through the lens of climate change. I hope you will not misunderstand me. Therefore, India cannot and should not have the affordability of dump coal in just the jiffy, as it is the cheapest, and as coal is available as a resource which is the cheapest and in abundance domestically for fueling many of our power stations. I'm sure that many of you will agree that countries like us will definitely have to take a pause, but not for a long, for a moment, and then get into the renewable power. Intermittency still remains an issue for the major renewables, which is also vulnerable to weather. Unlike West, India has comparatively smaller gas-fired and nuclear generation capacities. Why? Because the power from such plants are slightly or to some extent more costly. Hydel projects are costly and involve large displacements of forests and human habitats, besides being vulnerable to weather. So gas and nuclear is costly. Hydel has its own limitations. Storage technology still today is evolving and remains a costly option. Then there is only dependable option remains coal as on date. Again, I'm telling you as on date. The very recent, a couple of months back, when there is a surge of electricity demand, where electricity used to be sold per unit at a cost of 25 rupees. In exchange, they are all on a sudden, people have understood and again ultimately knocked the door of coal-based thermal power plants to increase generation, because at the end of the day, we cannot afford to live in darkness. A couple of years back, Brookings India's one of the reports suggests that substantial societal payouts from the coal across its value chain. This says it employs an estimated 4 million people directly or indirectly. At the mining level, the government enjoys dividend payouts from Coal India Limited. Railway, which dominates transportation of coal, receives an extensive level of cross subsidy from coal. So we also cannot ignore a large amount of revenue by way of taxes and royalties and mining fees, which are amongst the highest in the world. So my humble point here is we have to transfer from coal-based to renewable, but with keeping all this agenda, all these points in mind, as Dr. Selim said in his previous speech. India's per capita energy consumption as on date is 1/3 of the global average. International energy agencies, IEA, estimated that India need to add a power system equal to the size of European Union. You have not heard me wrong. Equal to the size of European Union to meet the expected growth of electricity demand in the next 20 years. So this is the global perspective. We, being a member of the power situation of the country as a whole, power professional, we always try to keep the bigger picture in mind, as well as we have to take actions to make ourselves fit for the future so that our business sustainability, be it coal, be it renewable, is not jeopardized. Now I am coming from the bigger picture to an energy professional, what we should be doing, considering the big picture what I have tried to depict. In India, energy access, energy transition, and climate change. Access, transition, and climate change of energy is going to ultimately shape the energy landscape of the country. But whenever I do this, whenever the policymakers will try to do that, they will definitely try to keep the other three things also in mind. That is, it should be reliable, it should be affordable, and it should be sustainable. So the question is, for a transition time, we must make our policies, decision, plans, whatever you say, will be directed towards reliable, affordable, and sustainable kind of a thing. I'm not going into the statistics of what is the capacity, what is coal capacity, what is going to be happening in after 10 years from now. Everything can suggest, if we can have a lens, we can see that even the 19 electric power survey of CEA, even in the year of 2029-30, which is 10 years from now, They are telling, yes, India will grow more than double, because their estimation is roughly 800 odd gigawatt of capacity, out of which definitely coal will reduce its share from today's roughly 53% to it will be around roughly 40-45%. But as far as the energy is concerned, even that time, it will share an energy of 54% compared to renewable, which is solar plus wind, which is 31%. But please understand, today it is only 10 to 12% share of energy. From 12% to 30% means there is a 20% energy more in the system with increasing demand. So therefore, we have to understand that renewable will be coming. There is absolutely no doubt. There should not be any iota of doubt. Renewable has to come, and we all have to be ready to welcome it, because that is what is required for the coming future. Again, I'm going back to a little backward, telling that how rapidly, how fast, how quick. So this is in a nutshell. However, for getting ourselves ready for the show to accept, and the kind of power plants what we have today, how we will sustain for another 10, 15, 20 years, if given an opportunity to remain there in the system. That should be our own agenda going forward. It is absolutely correct that gradually coal-based power plants will be having less and less time of production. Indian government policies, regulations, all are pushing hard by way of norms, notifications to infuse renewable energy, and non-compliance to that will be subjected to penalty. Actions what government has taken, you can see in the COP Paris Agreement, there was a pledge which India took that 40% of its capacity will be from renewable by 2030. And kindly note that at the end of the year 2021 December, India has achieved that number of 40%. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, please understand, we are at the right path, and we are not deviating from our commitments. Many of our targets in India are always getting delayed by years, if not decades. But this time, 40% capacity from renewable sources has been achieved 9 years before time. So we have a good future as far as the renewables are concerned.
Thank you so much.